Greetings, everybody. Nino the Mystic here, and welcome to another Beyond Truth. Tonight, we got a very special guest, Micah Dank. Am I saying that correctly?
Micah.
Micah, sorry. Micah Dank.
Okay.
Welcome, Micah. How you doing tonight?
I'm good.
Good. And Robert, how you doing?
Doing great. Can't wait for this. Been waiting a week or so or better. So I'm all excited. And I see you got your friend there walking around.
Yeah, we always like kitties around here. But for the audience sake, why don't I get you to introduce yourself, Micah? Let people know who you are and what you're all about and what you're going to present for us tonight.
Sure. My name is Micah, and I am what's called an astrotheologist. It's a breakdown of two words: astro for astrology and theologist. What I basically do is I show you astrological patterns, hidden codes in the Bible, with a cipher that I created, and it's pretty. Like once you see it, you can't not see it. So what I'm going to do today is the first half of my presentation, which will be about 55 minutes or so. Basically, I was a 32nd degree Freemason. I joined the Freemasons because I thought that they would find my esoteric work refreshing. I knew that they knew Jordan Maxwell. I knew they knew Manly P. Hall, and I thought it would fall in line with them. But when I did this presentation for them at the Grand Lodge in New York City, they took it down from the library, and they said that it was too risky for the fraternity's reputation and too revealing of the signs. That's what they said to me. So I left them, and I've been speaking out against them ever since. But I've still been teaching my work, and I just go around on podcasts, and I share what I found, and I say, look, I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm just going to show you what I found and see if you see the same things that I do.
That's very, very interesting. And, I've always, in the Bible, it says not to, look at astrology and all that kind of stuff. And there's a reason for that. They don't want you finding out things, right? They want to keep all that to themselves. So I'm not surprised that somebody like you has actually gone in there and started decoding. So, yeah, I can't wait to hear it. What you got here. Yeah, are you ready to do it right now, or is there anything else that we should tell the audience before we get going on this? Or
no, let's start. Let's go ahead. Just put it up on the screen, and I'll start.
All right,
here we go. Really big screen. Okay. All right, that's great. Okay, so when I'm going through this presentation, I actually have to go to the presentation. I can't do it from the main screen, which means that I can't see you guys, which means that if you guys want to jump in with a comment or a question, you're going to have to talk over me.
Okay.
So it's totally fine that you guys do that. Just understand I'm not looking at you guys. I'm looking at the presentation. I'm going to be scribbling all over this thing. You're gonna enjoy this.
All right. So, can't wait.
What I'm going to do is what's going to happen is as I go through this presentation, you're going to eventually get to the point very quickly where you start to pick up what I'm putting down. And your question in your head that you're going to have is, what is the point of this? And I thought I would answer that first before you ask that question and it enters your head. Then I'll read this again down the road because it'll reinforce it better once you have an idea of what it is that I do. So what is the point of all this? We take for granted we have calendars, clocks, watches, weathermen. The ancients didn't have any of that. They had sundials. In the Bible, they worked on dream interpretations for harvest. They had to know things. They needed to know Taurus was when you put the plow on the bull and plant as above, so below. The Bible is an encoded farmer's almanac and was the knowledge of staying alive the most important thing. They would look at the stars and see all this movement and make up stories about them and pass them down to their children, then them to their children, etc. Eventually, they learned how to write and wrote them down, and it evolved from Sumerian to Babylonian to Egyptian to Judaism in the Old Testament, then to the Christians, which the Jews wrote in Greek, to the Quran. It's in It's in literally everything. It's in the Ethiopian Bible, the Gnostic text, the Quran. It's in everything. So I'm going to read you this quote. If I can get a pen up right here. You guys are going to get very familiar with this quote because I'm going to read it to you a few times. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories and we are not smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. That's John Dominic Crossan. So, a couple of things. This is the zodiac. Cancer at the top, because when the sun is at the top, that's Cancer, that's the summer. The sun's at the bottom, that's winter. This is spring. This is fall. A couple of things. If in Taurus, which is the bull, right here, I can only talk about the bull. If I'm in Aries, which is the ram, I can only talk about the ram in the encodings. However, you'll find these lines right here in between. And what these guys, I'm not seeing these divided lines. What these divided lines are is it's a visual representation of something known as a cusp or a handover date. What it is the last 3 days of a sign and the first 3 days of the next sign. It's when the energies hand over to each other and they blend. So the thing is that when you're at this blending period, which blends the two signs together. For example, Aquarius is the sign of the man right here, and Pisces is the sign of the fish. So, like I told you before with Aries and Taurus, if you're in one, you can only talk about one. But if you're at the dividing line or the cusp, because it separates the two, or it connects the two, you can talk about the fish or the man. So I'm going to go through this real quick. And I wanted you to know that too, because this is a wheel cipher. And I'm going to show you how that works. So there's questions you can ask in the Bible. How Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water, how he turned water into wine, why he had 12 disciples, why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, why he was dead for 3 days, why is his birthday on December 25th. Now, all of that, guys, is astrology, and I'm going to explain it to you. But if I read this to you, Genesis 1:14, let lights appear in the sky to separate the day, that's the sun, from the night, that's the moon. Let them be signs, that's the zodiac, to mark the seasons, days, and years. And this is the Farmer's Almanac part that I was explaining. This is Genesis 1:14. Now, each or sign or a mansion, there are many words that they use to describe it in the Bible. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over the 12 signs with you because you're going to need to understand them in order to understand what I'm doing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break them down, and they're each going to have keywords in them that you're going to see attached to the sign. And they're going to make sense. You'll see. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use those keywords, and I'm going to show you how the heavens are laid out. So I'm going to start with Aquarius. The first sign I talk about is Aquarius, which is represented by the man. Now, technically, Aries begins at the beginning of the year. But I start with Aquarius for a reason you'll see after I explain Pisces. Now, the story of Aquarius, one of the early iterations of it, goes back to the story of Zeus and the young boy. So the story of Zeus and the young boy is basically Zeus sees a 14-year-old blonde boy on Earth. It was pretty specific about that. And he wanted him on Mount Olympus because he thought he was beautiful. And incidentally, guys, Mount Olympus, by the way, is actually a real location on Earth. It really exists. And none of the Greeks ever thought to go up there and see if the gods were up there. They just assumed that they were there. So anyway, what happens is Zeus is trying to get the young boy up there, but the boy's father won't let him go. So basically, Zeus ends up having to bargain with the boy's father. He gives him a whole bunch of stuff. The boy's allowed to go up there. While he's up there, he is serving the gods, just like in this picture right here, out of the water pitcher, something called ambrosia. That is the nectar of the gods. That's what the gods drank. Every day, he's doing this. Every day, he's serving them. Every single day he's serving them. And he just gets fed up with doing it one day, just the monotony of all of it. And of not being home, that one day he goes to the edge and he pours it out like in this picture. And this right here, this liquid, floods Earth, which is where the Greeks get their flood story. Now, Zeus, who's usually a very malevolent and unpredictable, sexually deviant, he was going to punish him. But in a moment of self-reflection, which was rare for Zeus, what he did was he was like, I probably shouldn't have brought the boy up. He did this, he did that. He should be with his friends and his family. I shouldn't have done that. So what he does is instead of punishing him, he immortalizes him as the constellation of Aquarius, of him doing the act of pouring it out. So the key words would be man for Aquarius, because Aquarius is the sign of the man, whereas Virgo is the sign of the woman. Baptism, this is literally how you baptize someone. Water pitcher, there's a water pitcher in the picture. Stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, sea. Now, Aquarius in astrology is an air sign. However, because there's liquid here, they used it to encode liquid or water. So those are the key words for Aquarius. Now, whereas Pisces is the sign of the two fish in the water, Pisces is actually a water sign, a mutable water sign. So all the same water examples, stream, river, pond, lake, sea, ocean, apply for Pisces. Now, whether you're talking about Aquarius water or Pisces water depends on the words that they use, and I'm going to make that make sense in part 2. But basically, the reason I start with Aquarius is because the first 2 signs I talk about delineate water. So I want you to be aware of that. Then Aries is the ram, and in Aries you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day and a 12-hour night. There's also 3 types of Passovers that occur. The first is the astrological Passover, which is March 21st, the spring equinox. That is the day that the sun literally passes over the equator. So it goes from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. So now in the northern hemisphere, things are going to get warmer. And so it starts to make its way back onto the height in the summer solstice. Now, in Judaism, this changes. And in Judaism, the Passover is when the angel of death passes over, or Passover, as they call it, all the houses, and anyone that doesn't have the baby lamb, which is a baby ram, by the way, because why do they have the ram's blood on the doorposts? Because the Jews are the people of Aries, the ram, which is why the Jews blow the ram's horn during the high holidays, because it's Aries worship. The Christian one, Passover, is changed, and it becomes the resurrection of God's Son, S-U-N, not S-O-N. And when it, so you have the Passover, the sun passing over the equator, that's the astrological one. The Jewish one, that's when the angel of death passes over and kills the firstborn son of anybody that doesn't have the ram's blood smeared on their doorposts. And then you have in Christianity the Passover, which becomes the resurrection of God's Son. That's Easter. Now, Easter is astrology too, because first you have to have the spring equinox, March 21st. And then after the spring equinox, well, you have to have the first full moon. And then after the first full moon, after the spring equinox, you have to have the first Sunday after. And that is when, that Sunday, is when Easter is, and that's how you calculate it every year. So the key words for Aries would be ram, lamb, shepherd, or ram's horn. Now Taurus is the bull, and when you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seeds so you can harvest Virgo and Libra. So whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, or cow being the female bull, that's Taurus. So it's as above, so below. So when you go outside in the spring and you look up at the sky and you see the bull, that tells you that you have to put the plow on the bull to till the land. No equipment that does that. John Deere equipment that does that now. But back in the day, they needed the bull, which is why Taurus is the bull. Now, Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy. You're going to remember these names because I'm going to show you how it's embedded into movies, the kind of stuff I'm talking about later. Whose sister was Helen, the story of Achilles. This is another Greek story. So Gemini being twins. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, that's Gemini. Cancer is the crab. The crab in the ancient Egyptian time was known as the scarab. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, that's Cancer. However, I'm going to explain why it's a crab. So, what the sun does is on, let me make this bigger so you can see. Right here, on December 21st, the sun, I'm sorry, not right here. Right here, December 21st, the sun is going to rise a degree on its axis. December 22nd, it's going to rise an additional degree. The 23rd, an additional degree. These little dots I'm making are not to scale, by the way. This is just showing you what it is. Every single day, the sun gains a degree on its axis. So as it's going up, things are getting warmer, the days are getting longer, the nights are getting shorter. When it hits the summer solstice, that is the longest day of the year, the shortest night of the year. That is June 21st. What the sun then does, which is a little peculiar, is on June 22nd, it's not going to rise another degree or drop another degree. What it does for 3 consecutive days after June 21st is it rises to the exact same height. Then on June 25th, it's going to lower it. Then on June 26th, it's going to lower it. Now the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer. Then what happens is when you hit here is the winter solstice. This is the shortest night of the year. So it's the longest night of the year. What it then does is, well, let me back up for a second. It's the shortest day of the year. It's the longest night of the year. The ancients go out on December 21st and look at the sun, and the sun will track the horizon. So the ancients used to say that the sun, was dead. Then what happens is it's going to walk sideways for 3 days, just like the crab. Then on December 25th, it's going to come back to life. So they used to say the sun was dead on December 21st. Because it was at its lowest point. Then it's going to walk sideways for 3 days, which is why the Son of God is dead for 3 days. Where on December 25th, the sun comes back to life, born again, the risen Savior, light of the world, comes back to life, born again. And it does this procedure all over again. Now, the reason Cancer is the crab is the second. I don't know if you've ever seen a crab, but it shuffles from side to side. That's what the sun does. On June 21st, for 3 days after that, it shuffles to the side. That's why Cancer is the crab. Now, Leo is the king. The lion is the king of the jungle. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you hear lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Virgo, as you can see here, is the lady holding the stalk of wheat. It's the virgin holding the stalk of wheat. Remember before when I said that you plant in Taurus? Well, the reason you plant in Taurus, the reason Virgo is a virgin holding the wheat stalk is because in Virgo, the virgins would go out to cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make them virgin. So whenever you hear woman or virgin, because Virgo is the sign of a woman, remember? Wheat, because this is the stalk of wheat. Grain, seed, barley, corn. These are all grainy things that in the northern hemisphere thousands of years ago, they harvested. And I can show you that here. Hold on one second. Then Libra is the justice. Scales is the balance, is known as the just one. The reason it's the justice is because the scale is going to judge God's sun as it passes over, or technically passes under, the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. Libra is also wine season, which is when you plant for the grapes in Taurus, you can press the wine here. Libra is also olive season. You do the same thing. You press the olives to get the holy oil. So Libra is all law-related things, like law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, law-related things. Wine-related things, grape-related things, wine, vineyard, wine press, grapes, olive oil or olive oil. So all law, all wine, and all olive is Libra. Then Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is the betrayer. When a scorpion attacks, bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. You guys can look this up on search engine if you want. It's where the mafia gets their idea of the kiss of death. And it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss, because Judas represents Scorpio. So the sun is judged in Libra, and it's betrayed in Scorpio. But I wanted to show you this real quick because this is going to come in handy too. Scorpio evolves 7 times. The scorpion, you're going to want to know the wolf, the eagle, or the dove. So I just want to show you this evolution of Scorpio. So it's judged in Libra, and it's betrayed in Scorpio. And finally in Sagittarius, this is where the bullet shoots the sun and inflicts further punishment on the sun. This is where the sun dies. Why? Because on December 21st, the sun is at its lowest point. It cannot rise any lower. It's dead. So the winter solstice is the last day of Sagittarius. The summer solstice is the first day of Cancer. And I'll explain what that means too. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. And then finally you have Capricorn, who's the goat. Now remember how I told you that the sun is going to climb a degree a day. Again, this is not the scale, but the sun is going to climb a degree a day, going through these signs. The days are getting longer, it's getting warmer, it's getting warmer. It makes the climb, it's known as the Great Mountain. That's what the zodiac is called, the Great Mountain. And that's why Capricorn is the goat, because he starts the climb. And the goat the mountain goat is the best animal out there that climbs the mountain. So those are the 12 signs. Do you guys have any questions based off of what I just told you?
Robert?
It's based on the seasons, basically. Like you said, it's an almanac, and with changing times for planting, times for renewal. As you would say, the sun goes dark and then it crawls like a crab and then it comes out again, giving the renewal of spring coming in and hope for the next year. I would imagine that each one of those animals that represent that also represent, like you said, the goat climbing, the crab moving side to side, et cetera, right?
Right.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense when you.
So now.
Yeah. Sorry.
So now, my entire case that I'm going to make moving forward is that Jesus is the sun in the sky. The sun god. He's anthropomorphized as a human. But it's sun worship. And I'm going to show you how that is. For example, there's names in church that you give to Jesus. You guys have heard these names before. But they're astrology related. And they just don't want you to look into it. When the sun, or Jesus, which by the way, the sun is right behind his head right here, because he is the sun. You can literally go to any picture that you want to find of him on the internet. You will always find the sun behind his head. It is not a halo. It's telling you that he is the sun. Now, when the sun is in Capricorn, which is the goat, his name is the scapegoat of Israel. When the sun is in, or Jesus is in the sign of Aquarius, son of man, because the man sign is Aquarius. When the sun is in Pisces, the 2 fish, he's the fisher of men, and that's also why he could feed the masses with 2 fish. He is the Lamb of God, or the Good Shepherd. Cancer is the scarab, the beetle, remember? St. Augustine famously called Jesus the good beetle. When the sun is in Leo, the lion, he is the Lion of Judah. The lady holding the stalk of wheat, Virgo, he is born of a virgin, and he is called the bread of life. The bread comes from the wheat. Libra, he's the scales of justice. He is known as the just one. These are all names that they give him in church that are all astrologically based. So now that I've introduced you to that concept, it's why he's worshipped on the sun day, by the way. They changed it from the Saturn day or the Saturn day because the Jews are a Saturnalia-based cult. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading you scripture and showing you how this works. I'm going to highlight everything here so you can see it. Deuteronomy 32. He gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the fine wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. So let's explain this one to you real quick. Now, this is the first day of summer. And if I continue it to its opposing sign, this is the first day of winter. There is a group of stars, a closely knit group of stars called the beehive cluster, and that's where the honey comes from. The beehive cluster, if you trace it back even further, astrologically, it used to be called the manger. That's where it was called. Now, that's the first day of summer is Cancer, the beehive cluster, the honey. The last day of Sagittarius is the first day of winter. In Sagittarius, you have a constellation called Milkyway galaxy, which is where the milk comes from. So you have the milk and the honey. From the first day of summer in Cancer to the first day, the last day of Sagittarius in winter, it is not a place on Earth. Now, the olive oil is Libra, the lamb is Aries, and the goat is Capricorn. The ram is also Aries, and the wheat is Virgo, holding the wheat stalk. The wine and the red grapes is Libra, because remember, law, wine, and olives, remember? And the bull is Taurus. So in Deuteronomy 32, there are 10 zodiac signs that they show you. And by understanding these key words, I will show you how this works with the zodiac wheel now. Mount of Olives. Jesus led his disciples, let me highlight some stuff here, to the Mount of, let's highlight the word olives. Jesus led his disciples to the Mount of Olives after his last Passover so that he could teach them a few more things, pray, then wait for Judas to betray him. While walking to the Mount of Olives, he gave the parable of the true vine. So, Passover takes place here in Aries. Where right after that, he walks to the Mount of Olives. Well, where's Olives? Well, that's in Libra. How do you get from Aries to Libra? They're known as opposing signs. The other thing that I'm going to show you is as I decode this and I show you these little astrological codes that are embedded into the scripture, you're going to find two things. For example, Aries right here, it's only going to make two different types of connections. You're going to have the connecting signs, which is Pisces and Taurus. It's on either side of it. Or the opposing sign, like I showed you right here. So Aries is Passover. It's either going to be an opposing sign or a connecting sign. Those are the only patterns it's going to make. It's never going to go from like Leo to Scorpio. It's never going to do that. It's always going to make these patterns. That's how you know it was done intentionally. So let's start again. Aries is Passover. Right after that, he goes to the Mount of Olives. The olives are Libra. Those are opposing signs. That's a pattern. Well, what is he doing once he's an olive? Well, he's waiting for Judas to betray him. Who's the betrayer? That's Scorpio. That is the connecting sign to Libra. So now you've got two patterns. But they said they're waiting for him to betray him. They haven't said he's betrayed him yet. So they just tease that. While he's in Libra, he's still in Libra, which is law, wine, and oil, remember? He gives the parable of the true vine. So basically, each one of these zodiac signs holds some key words that they can be used to create stories with. And I'm just going to show you example after example after example. Revelation 4:7. The first living creature was like a lion. The second was like an ox. The third had a face like a man. The fourth was like a flying eagle. The first living creature was like a lion, that's Leo. The second was like an ox, that's Taurus. The third had a face like a man, that's Aquarius. The fourth was like a flying eagle. I mentioned to you before that astrology, one of the evolutions of Scorpio is the eagle, but I'm going to explain it to you now why. In astrology, the scorpion is the belly-crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on Earth because it slithers on its belly. In the Garden of Eden, the story of the Garden of Eden, the first thing that God does after deception from the serpent is he doesn't kick Adam and Eve out right away. The very first thing that God does is he takes the legs away from the snake and makes him slither on its belly. It's a punishment. In Mexico, during Santo de la Muerte, men get dressed up in suits and they get on their hands and knees and they crawl to church on their belly. It's a punishment. Now, the evolved form is known as the eagle. So the scorpion is the belly-crawling creature. It's the lowest form of life on Earth, but the eagle is the highest flying form of life on Earth. The eagle will evolve again from the Scorpio to the eagle to the phoenix. And what is the story of the phoenix? It's the story of Jesus, the sun in the sky. It's the story of a flaming ball that dies, right, December 21st, the day that it dies, and then it's dead for 3 days, and then it comes back to life. It's the same story. So now you have Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. Those are the 4 fixed signs of the eagle, of the zodiac. So what does that mean? I'm going to show you what that means right now. I'm going to show you what that means right now. You have 12 zodiac signs, and you have 4 seasons. So 12 divided by 4 equals 3. So what that means is there's 3 signs in each season. 3 signs in each season. So for example, summer, 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 fall, 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 winter, 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 spring, spring, spring. The first sign in a season, which I'm circling right now, is known as the cardinal sign, which is why churches have cardinals. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but you can take, or astrologers do this, you can take any one of these zodiac signs, and they are split into 3 10-day segments called deacons, which is why you have deacons and cardinals in church, because it's all astrology. They just don't want you to know about it. Now, the cardinal sign is the first sign. It's the sign that takes you into the season. This right here Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, the man, and Taurus, the ox. Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, right? Okay. I don't know why it's being this difficult. These 4 are known as the fixed signs. So that's what it means, the fixed signs. So what does the fixed sign mean? Well, the first sign in the season is the cardinal sign. The second is the fixed. The third is the mutant. The first sign takes you into the season. The third sign takes you out of the season. So what about the second signs? Well, the second signs, they're called the fixed signs because they're fixed. Because look, beginning of summer, end of summer, this is the dead of summer. It's fixed in the season. This is the middle of summer. This is the middle of fall. This is the middle of spring. Winter, this is the middle of spring. And if you look, too, they form that opposing sign patterns. There's Leo and Aquarius, and there's Taurus and Scorpio. It actually forms an X. So is there really a 4-headed creature that's going to be in the heavens, or is it just making this pattern on the zodiac? Is the question that I would ask. Ezekiel 10:14 says each of the cherubim had 4 faces. One face was that of a cherub, the second the face of a human being, the third the face of a lion, the fourth the face of an eagle. It's the same thing. Now, Revelation 12, great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon, 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its head. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. So let's read this. Revelation 12 explains. A woman clothed with the sun is a metaphor for the sun being in Virgo, because Virgo is the woman. A woman clothed with the sun, so it's the sun is in Virgo. If the sun is in Virgo, the moon will be at her feet. In order to understand that, you have to understand there's 12 zodiac signs, and there's a 24-hour-a-day clock. So the sun basically spends 2 hours a day in each sign. It's just simple math. So now, this right here is 12 to 2, midnight to 2. 2 to 4, 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 2. This is the height. Remember, it's at its height. At height at noon, the sun is its hottest. Then 2 to 4. And then Virgo, the woman with the sun, is 4 to 6. Now, if the sun is between 4 and 6 p.m., the sun is still out. Right now, it's 5 p.m. here. The sun is still out. I'm looking right now. If the sun is out, then the moon metaphorically will be at her feet. Because if the moon is up, then the sun metaphorically is at her feet. Now, another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky. So what I'm highlighting right now is the dragon's tail, and flung them to earth. The constellation Draco is the dragon. Its tail goes from Aries to Sagittarius, which is 4/12 of the sign, or 1/3 of stars out of the sky. Then Matthew 10:16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep, that's Aries, in the midst of wolves. If I go to the opposing sign Libra, you'll find a constellation there called Lupus, which means wolf. It's in Libra. Those are opposing signs. So be as wise as serpents. Now, who's the serpent? Well, between Scorpio and Sagittarius right here, you have the 13th sign called Ophiuchus, which is the serpent bearer. And harmless as doves. The dove is an evolution of Scorpio. So look what we have here. You have an opposing sign, and then you have 3 connecting signs. Just from this one passage. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be as wise as serpents and harmless as doves. So you have opposing sign, 1, 2, 3 signs. So I've given examples of astrotheology in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. I've been accused of cherry-picking verses from the Bible to prove a point. So let's take a much longer passage and see if we can decode it as well. Are you guys familiar with the story of Job?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Do you want to explain to your audience what the story was about?
Well, it was it was supposed to be a test, and you know, a test against good and evil, and you know, I mean, the devil and God, or Satan, Lucifer, or whatever, and you know, it was a test if he would stay faithful. To me, I kind of think it's a big joke, because they were just toying and playing with it. But you probably got something better than that. I don't know, Nina.
Yeah, well, basically the story about him losing everything and then getting it back. So I'd be curious to see what you have there, Micah.
So it's basically the story of Job, as I explain it, is basically a story of a man who has everything and is God's most faithful servant. And Satan gets annoyed at that. And Satan goes up to God and says, listen, the only reason he's faithful is because he has so much. He has land, he has animals, he has money, he has family, he has a wife. If you take that away, he'll curse you. And God goes, you know what? I'll take that bet. You can do whatever you want to him, but you may not take his life. So just like you said, little by little, he starts losing everything. And at one point, he's just sitting there on the ground. And it's like 20 pages long in the Bible. It's an enormous section where Job is basically crying out to God. And at one point, God replies to him. What I'm going to read to you is God's reply to him. I'm going to show you just how big this is. Job 38:32. The first thing God says to him when he speaks is, can you lead forth the Mazaroth? They don't want you to know this. The Mazaroth word, Mazaroth, was left intentionally untranslated from Mazaroth. They left it as Mazaroth because they don't want you to know that that translates to zodiac. The Mazaroth over time becomes the word Mazalot, which survives in Judaism today as Mazel Tov, which means good fortune from the stars. So what is the Lord's challenge to Job? He says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Well, now finally we have two out in the open celestial metaphors, right? Finally, instead of it being hidden. Now, the Pleiades are in Taurus. Orion's belt is between Taurus and Gemini. Then he says, can you bring forth the constellation in their season or lead out the bear with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above. The bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, part of the Big Dipper. That's Gemini and Cancer. So you have Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. The first three things that he asks him are three zodiac signs in a row. Then he says, who can tip the water jars of heavens? Who's the guy tipping the water jar of heaven? I explained to you the story earlier. It's Aquarius, the man with the water. Then he says, do you hunt the prey for the lion? Does it satisfy the hunger for the lions? That's Leo. Well, now look at this, guys. You have Aquarius right here, and then you have these four signs in a row. Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, and Leo. And then it continues. Who provides food for the raven? That's the constellation Corvus, which means raven and borders on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? Mariga, meaning deer, is located in Orion. Who let the wild donkey go free? That's the Stelis Borealis, meaning donkey, and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? Well, the ox is Taurus. Do you give the horse its strength? So they mentioned the horse. We know that's Sagittarius, the man with the horse and the bow and the arrow. But if you keep reading, it says, it laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver, see, they mentioned the quiver. For those of you who don't know what a quiver is, a quiver sits alongside the horse and holds the arrows because they're talking about Sagittarius, the man on the horse with the bow and the arrow. Does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? The eagle is Scorpio evolves. Then he says, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? Leviathan was an ancient fish god, just like Dagon, just like Mithra. Competing fish gods back in Jesus' time. And that's Pisces. So his entire challenge to him produces these two connecting signs, and these 5 signs in a row. So I just want to show you how many codes and how many examples you can find within the Bible. Now, the answer to the questions at the beginning, how Jesus was able to heal the blind, how he walked on water. Okay, so how Jesus was able to heal the blind. We know the story of what happened in the Bible. Jesus, the blind man came up to him and he said, heal me, Jesus. And Jesus said, with your faith, I will. And he does. Puts his fingers on his eyes. And then when the dirt falls off, he's able to see. But the sun does the same thing right now because it's 5 o'clock right now. I can see outside. But when the sun goes down, without any kind of artificial light, like lampposts or flashlights or candles or any of that kind of stuff, you're blind. What happens is the sun has to come up in the morning and touch your eyes in order to give you sight again. Now, how he walked on water, we know the story that Jesus walked on water, but the sun does the same thing too. If you've ever gone fishing before or been on a yacht or a boat and you'll see during sunrise and sunset, you'll see the sun literally walking on water. And guess what? Jesus, he's given the title Christ, right? Christos in Greek, which is what the Jews wrote the New Testament in. Christos means anointed one or oil or holy oil. Now, let me ask you a question. The sun walks on water. Jesus walks on water. And let me ask you a question. When you pour oil on water, does it also not walk on water?
Mm-hmm.
So This is actually a triple entendre right here, how he walked on water. Now, how he turned water into wine, this is not a parlor trick. This is the Farmer's Almanac talking right now. The water into wine basically is like this. The reason God is considered a man and Mother Earth is considered a woman has to do with one thing, and one thing only. This is the only thing that actually gives it its meaning. The rain, the sacred fluid. In Hebrew, the word is shemen. We call it we get the word semen from it. It's a sacred fluid. So you got to think about this metaphorically. Basically, what happens is when it rains, it's God ejaculating onto Earth, and then from her belly, from the water, plants, food, everything grows. Now, Taurus, as above, so below. You see the bowl, you put the plow on the bowl. That's when you plant grape seeds. And then April showers bring May flowers. Well, that's in Taurus. That's April, May. And then what happens is it rains and it rains and it rains throughout the year. And then in Libra, you pick the grapes and you turn it into wine. That's how you turn God's water into wine. It's a Farmer's Almanac. It's an astrological process. Now, why he had 12 disciples? I'm going to go over that with you right now. So, a couple of them. Libra right here would be James, who is known as the just one, because Libra is the scale, it's the justice. Scorpio is Judas, the betrayer. Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher, that's John the Baptist, going around baptizing people with the water pitcher. Pisces, you have to understand astrology for this. Pisces is the sign of the two fish. And obviously Jesus feeds the masses with two fish. But Pisces would be Simon Peter. Because if you think about it, Michael becomes Mike, Thomas becomes Tom, Ronald becomes Ron, Stanley becomes Stan. These all make sense. But Simon to Peter doesn't make sense unless you understand astrology. See, Simon's job, he was a fisherman, and the fish happened to be Pisces. And he becomes Peter because the ruling planet of Pisces is Jupiter, or Jew, Peter. These are just plays on words. When it comes to Gemini, right here, you have Thomas Didymus, because in Hebrew, the word ta'om, or tom, means twin. In Greek, which the New Testament was written in, the word Didymus literally translates to twin. So you have twin. That's Gemini, the twins. So I've just given you 5 examples of how they all represent the story that I'm putting together for you. I'm not going to do all 12, but I just wanted to show you how that works. The 12 disciples. Why he was betrayed with a kiss by Judas, we went over that, because Judas represents Scorpio, which leaves the kiss mark when it bites you, the betrayer. Why was he dead for 3 days? The sun walking sideways. Why is his birthday on December 25th? All the ancient gods were born on December 25th. December 25th is the day after the winter solstice, after those 3 days of darkness, where the sun comes back again. He is risen, the light of the world, the only begotten Son. So the questions from the beginning. Now, this science only works for people in the northern hemisphere, and there is a reason for that. The Egyptians, Jews, Christians, and Muslims are all based out of the northern hemisphere. For example, June 21st, the summer solstice, is actually the winter solstice in Australia, New Zealand, much of South Africa, and South America. That makes sense, right, guys? Is that in the northern hemisphere, things are reversed. So what I would show you is here. If we're talking about Virgo right here, this is the wheat stalk. This is when you harvest the wheat, right? The lady with the wheat stalk. In the southern hemisphere, to find out when you do that, since the seasons are opposed, is you just go to the opposing sign. So Virgo's opposing sign is Pisces. So that's when you harvest the wheat. Taurus is when you plant, right? You put the plow on the bowl. Well, its opposing sign is Scorpio. That's when you do it in the southern hemisphere. So that's all you have to do. It's the same calendar. It's just in reverse. Now, it doesn't stop there. It's not just random passages in the Bible that can be decoded this way. I'm going to go through the entire book of Revelation to show you, one, how not scary it is, and number two, just how deep these codes run. So before I do, I want to take a sip of something to drink, and I want to ask you guys what you think so far.
Well, it's very interesting. Boy, I got a ton of notes.
Is this a good time to stop the presentation and just do questions now? Should I?
No, not quite yet. I have to show you two more things.
Okay. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Robert.
Basically, all of this. You were talking about the four corners of the ox, the lion, the man, and the eagle. Those are the anchors of the zodiac, are they not? That would also correspond with the four books of the Bible, with the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Yeah, I'm going to show you the book of Matthew.
Okay. I like I said, I was just making notes, and that's kind of what I come up with. You got, you also came up with the Aquarius is the man. He's also, the man, which is the angel, is the vision, and that would be the same as, like, Israel is the same as the 12 stars. They have the 12 tribes, and that all corresponds with what you're saying is the same as the zodiac. They just use the 12 tribes is the same as the zodiac.
12 tribes, 12 signs of the zodiac,
yes.
The 12 brothers of Joseph, the 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples. It's all the same thing. It's the 12 signs of the zodiac.
Yes, that's what I'm coming up with. I'm putting all this together as notes, and I'm making notes on that. But yeah, you're putting it all down, and I'm picking it up, I guess. So it's very good. Thank you.
Yeah, keep going.
All right, so let's do Revelation. Now, this is the four creatures that you literally just mentioned: the lion, the ox, the man, and the flying eagle. We already went over this, so I'm going to skip this, okay? I'm going to move on to something after this because we already did this one. Revelation 5:5. Then one of the elders said to me, "Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, or Leo, the root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals." Well, how? Why would they say the Lion of the tribe of Judah is able to open that? Well, the ruling planet of Leo is the sun. That's Christ. So that is the king. That is where the sun is in. It's in its glory. It's in summer. It's in the dead of summer. It's in its glory. That's why he's able to open the scroll and the 7 seals. Now I watched as the Lamb opened the first of the 7 seals. The first of the 7 seals. Then I heard one of the 4 living creatures. 4 living creatures are the 4 fixed signs, guys. Say in a voice like thunder, "Come." Well, the Lamb has to open the first of the 7 seals because the Lamb is Aries, and Aries is the beginning of the year, so that opens the first seal. Aries is April. What is the word for open in Italian? Apri, right? That's where you get April from. Apri. April. Say in a voice like thunder. In Hebrew, the word for thunder translates to voices. So when they talk about Moses getting the commandments and they heard the noises, they thought God was talking. So Revelation 6:2, I looked, and there before me was a white horse. Its rider held a bow. Who's the rider with the bow and the arrow? I mean, it's right there in the open. They're telling you that's Sagittarius right there, the man with the bow and the arrow. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the 4 living creatures, again the 4 fixed signs, saying 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages. So the wheat is Virgo, and the barley, so that's the bread and the beer, the wheat and the barley. That's both harvested in Virgo. And do not damage the oil and the wine. Well, the oil and the wine is Libra. Well, guess what? These 2 Virgo, these 2 Libra are connecting signs. I watched as he opened the 6th seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like a sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. So the reason they said goat is the goat is Capricorn, which is at the bottom of the wheel right here. Its opposing sign is Cancer, whose ruling planet is the moon, which is why they put them together like that, because they're teaching you the heavens. Revelation 7:4. Then I heard those who were sealed, 144,000 from all the tribes of Israel. But what this basically says, and the Jehovah's are too, they only believe 144,000 people get to go see God out of the billions that have ever lived, right? The hundreds of billions that have ever lived. But I'm going to show you how anyone can go see God. It's a gift for everyone. There are 7 chakras. The root has 4 petals, the sacral has 6, the solar plexus has 10, the heart has 12, and the throat has 16, which equals 48. The third eye chakra is represented by 96 and only has 2 petals because it's 2 times as powerful as the lower chakras. So 48 times 2 is 96. The crown chakra is 1,000 times more powerful than the lower 6 chakras. When you add the lower 6, you get 96 plus 48 equals 144. Then you times that by the 1,000 in the crown chakra, you get your 144,000. What is trying to tell you here, without telling you, is that when you've activated all your chakras, that is when you get to go see God. That's what they're trying to tell you. It's real simple. Now, Revelation 9:3. And out of the smoke, locusts came down on the earth and were given powers like that of scorpions of the earth. Well, what did I tell you the power of the scorpion was, guys? What does the scorpion do? It betrays. So how did the locust betray? Well, in about 5 minutes, the passage from the book of Matthew, the book of Leviticus, that shows you that locusts are a food source. That's a good thing, right? Because you can eat locusts. That's what they tell you. You can eat locusts. However, how does it betray? Well, in small amounts, it's food. But in large amounts, it's actually literally a plague. So that's how it was given the power of scorpions, because it's food, you think it's a good thing, and then it gets too big, and then it basically it's a plague. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and a mouth like that of a lion. So I didn't mention this to you yet, guys, but all these constellations that I'm mentioning to you guys, aside from the zodiac that I bring up, have all been noted in Ptolemy's 48 constellation list from 150 AD. I'm not using the constellation list from now because we have 88 constellations here. I'm not using this one. I'm only using one that would have been time appropriate for what they knew at the time. So there's a constellation called Camelopardalis, which is a breakdown of the word camel and pardalis. Camelos means camel, and pardalis means leopard, the camel leopard, which was the original name for the giraffe. They called it a camel leopard because they saw this weird, humpy-looking creature with spots, and they called it Camelopardalis. And Camelopardalis is in Gemini. Ursa Major is in Cancer. The lion is Leo. So look at this. The beast I saw resembled the leopard. That's Gemini. It had feet like those of a bear. That's Cancer. And a mouth like that of a lion. That's Leo. That short passage, guys, is 3 zodiac signs in a row. Then I saw a second beast coming out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb. That's Aries. But it spoke like a dragon. The dragon begins in Aries. This passage is literally alluding to Aries. Cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense. Now, myrrh and frankincense, I didn't explain this to you guys yet, but the myrrh and frankincense are actually olive plants, and olives are Libra. And guess what? If I keep reading, the wine is also Libra, and the olive oil is also Libra. A fine flour and wheat, that's Virgo. Those are connecting signs, Virgo and Libra. Cattle is Taurus. Sheep is Aries. Those are connecting signs. Horses and carriages, that's horses is Sagittarius. And the human beings are Virgo and Aquarius. My point, once again, is not that those ancient people told literal stories, and we are now smart enough to take them symbolically, but that they told them symbolically, and we are now dumb enough to take them literally. So this is where I'm going to end, basically. I'm going to do the deep dive into the book of Matthew. And then after we're done with the book of Matthew, we should be able to... Hold on. Let me just do something.
Oh, did I take it down too quick? Sorry.
Yeah, put it back up.
Okay.
All right, so let's do this. Now, what I've done is I put the zodiac wheel, and this little red thingy here, right here, is showing you where everything is. Now, your co-host was talking about 4 gospels, 4 seasons. Each gospel begins at a season. Matthew 3:2, repent of your sins and turn to God, for the kingdom of heaven is near. Each gospel begins at one of the four major points in the zodiac. That's summer solstice, fall equinox, winter solstice, spring equinox. Two solstices and the two equinox, by the way, when I do this and connect their opposing signs, forms the cross of God's Son that he carries to his death. The kingdom of heaven is right here, Leo, because Sun rules Leo. The closest of the 4 points that I mentioned right here to Leo is Cancer. So this gospel starts in the summer. This starts in June 21st. This right here is the cusp, handover date between Cancer and Leo. It's the beginning of the kingdom. Now, Matthew 3:4, John's clothes were woven from coarse camel hair, and he wore a leather belt around his waist. For food, he ate locusts and wild honey. Now, if we take the most famous drawing of a man, Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and superimpose it onto the zodiac, we can make sense of this. How does that work? Like this? Now, the head is in Cancer, as you can see. His mouth is part of the head. And in Cancer, you have the beehive cluster that I mentioned earlier. That's where the honey comes from. So the mouth that's in Cancer is eating the honey. Then Leviticus 11, what's clean and unclean to eat. All flying insects that walk on all fours are to be regarded as unclean by you. There are, however, some flying insects that walk on all fours that you may eat. Those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these you may eat any kind of locust, so there it is. Katydid, cricket, or grasshopper. So, a little lower on the body is the clothes made out of camel hair. So remember, at Cancer, we had the beehive cluster right here. We had the head, which is in Cancer, and we had the mouth so that it was eating that. Now, Gemini is a little lower on the body from the head, so it would kind of be like here, which is now you have the constellation Camelopardalis. Now, a little bit lower, so remember, we started in Leo, then we went to Cancer for the beehive cluster, eating the honey. And then in Gemini, you had the clothes made out of camel hair. And then in Taurus, this is a little lower, kind of like the belly button. Well, this is kind of like where you wear the belt, right? Incidentally, now you have 4 signs in a row that open this. Leo, Cancer, Gemini, and Taurus. That's 4 signs in a row that open this gospel. The midsection is where you wear the belt. Taurus represents the bull and the female is the cow, which is where you get the leather. Regarding the belt, Orion's belt sits right here between Taurus and Gemini. So next would be the baptism. Now, how are we going to go from the beginning of Leo, which is where this started, the gospel, to a water sign to signify the baptism? Well, you just go across the zodiac. You would go to its opposing sign. Remember, when you're at a cusp, you could talk about either side. But you started here, Cancer, Leo, and now you're here. And now you're in Aquarius, so you can do the baptism. See how it makes a leap from one cusp to the other. The man with the water pitcher in Aquarius is personified as John the Baptist with the water. It's important to note, too, that John the Baptist and Jesus are always exactly 6 months apart. When you think about the fact that Jesus is born on December 25th, like I'm showing you right here, and is going up a degree a day, right, the sun, that would mean that John the Baptist is born on June 24th and decrease a degree a day. And you know this is the case because in John 3:30, God says, he must increase, but I must decrease. And that's exactly what it does. As one goes up, the other goes down. And it's also why, if you open up a Catholic calendar, St. John's Day is exactly 6 months to the day of the birthday of Jesus. So the next story is the temptation of Jesus. So we did the baptism here. We're touching the water, Aquarius, and now we're going back here. July 24th. That's the Cancer Leo firmament. And what happens? Well, Jesus is tempted by the devil for 40 days, right? So it's real simple. This is when he come back here. So that's July 24th. So count 40 days because he's tempted. That's September 2nd. That is right in the middle of Virgo, the lady with the wheat stalk. Well, what is the very next passage? Matthew 4:3. If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become loaves of bread. Here we see mention of the bread, which tells you that the sun is in Virgo. The next passage, so we were in Leo, and then we were in Virgo, and then the next passage is Libra, which is law, wine, and oil, remember? Well, Matthew 5:17 and 22. I did not come to abolish the law, and if you are even angry with someone, you are subject to judgment. Both law and judgment are Libra. So we started in Cancer, and now we're going 4 signs to the right. So this gospel, from everything that I showed you, goes 7 signs this way. If you haven't realized by now, there's keywords for each of these. For example, Cancer is the crab, right? So I could talk about the crab, or I could talk about the beetle, or I could talk about, summer, talk about the beehive cluster because that's there. I could talk about Acellus borealis, that's known as the donkey, that's there. I could talk about the bear, Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, that's there. And that's basically what it is. There's constellations in each one. And each zodiac sign holds a piece to the cipher that makes up scripture. And that's basically what I teach, what I'm showing people. Matthew 7:15, 16. Beware of false prophets who come as harmless sheep. So the sheep is Aries. And can you pick grapes from the thorn bushes? Well, the grapes are Libra. Guess what? Those are opposing signs. The sheep are Aries and the grapes are Libra. Moving along, Matthew 13. Later the same day, Jesus left the house and sat beside the lake. So you got the 2 water signs right here, right? So besides the lake would be right here between the 2. Because he's not in the lake. If he was in the lake, he'd be in one of the signs. They say he sat beside the lake. So they're telling you he's beside the 2 signs right here. If you follow it to its opposing sign, that's Virgo right there. Virgo touching Virgo. The wheat stalk and the grains. So what did Jesus give us for the parables? Well, the wheat and the weeds, the mustard seed, and the yeast. And then there's one more left. So you're going to come back here, touching Pisces, and now you can read the fishing net parable. It's a cipher, guys. This is what this is. It's a cipher. It's celestial poetry that teaches you the heavens. It teaches you what signs are in what. It teaches you when to do what, and it teaches you the heavens. You could map it out like this. Now, Gemini is the sign of 2 men, technically twins. However, there's just a short mention of brothers in the next passage. He's just the carpenter's son, and we know Mary, his mother, and his brother. James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas. This ends right here because, we're in Gemini, so we're talking about the brothers, right? The twins. But if you follow this to its opposing sign, this is the last day of this is the first day of winter. This is the last day of Sagittarius. That's the day of birth, December 21st. Well, what's the very next story? It's the death of John the Baptist. You see how this is starting to work? As I've mentioned previously, death comes at the end of Sagittarius. So I'm going to show you how Scripture is written now. Let's take a sentence which sounds like it could be in the Bible but isn't. If I say to you, the rulers were divided between war and love. It split the land in half. You could read that as a literal translation. Or the ruling planet of Aries is Mars, who's the god of war. The opposing sign is Libra, whose ruling sign is Venus, who's the goddess of love. There's your war and love. And if you connect it, it splits the land, also known as the zodiac, in half. And that's how you write scripture, guys. It's not very hard. Matthew 14, 17, and 32. But we only have 5 loaves of bread. The bread is Virgo, right here. And if you go to the opposing sign, again, that's Pisces. That's the 2 fish. Literally the 2 fish. Jesus feeds the masses with 2 fish. This is the cross of God's Son. We were just in Virgo, remember? And now next is Libra, which is law, wine, and oil, remember? What story do we get now? The story of the temple tax, that's law. The unforgiving debtor, that's law. Divorce and marriage, that's law. And the parable of the vineyard worker, that's wine. Virgo and Libra are 2 connecting signs. Next is the betrayal, that's 3 connecting signs. Virgo Libra, and Scorpio. And then Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, and then Sagittarius. This is another death. First we had the death of John the Baptist, and now we have the death of Christ. Astrology is a language. If you understand this language, the sky speaks to you. And I understand this language, and I'm trying to explain and teach this to as many people as possible. So, are you starting to see the great implication of this so far? This means that at the very, very, very least, the Bible is not meant to be taken literally. And I think I'm going to stop here, guys. So, let me know what you guys think, what you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, this is very, very interesting, and I see it and I get it, and yeah, it's very interesting. Did you have any questions there, Robert?
Well, we were putting together the times, the dates, and they all correspond and match up. With those, you were talking about the dragon, and we talked about that once before. Why is the dragon on, like, the Chinese zodiac? They have the dragon, and there's no dragon. And really, in this thing, it's because it's showing a sign of power. Dragons were powerful. It's also representing the adversary, for the power, and because you were talking about he goes out for 40 days, and that's the time frame there. So anyway, have you ever tried to, like, put numbers to this and correspond numbers for each one of those signs to come up with something out of that? Because the numbers would be powerful too, I suppose, because they seem to be a repeating pattern. You know what I'm saying? Sure what you mean.
Like numerology? Like
in some sort of way there, yes, because it seems like you have the opposite for the opposite. The winter and the summer, the signs, the four corners. With where was it here? Sorry, I'm making lots of notes. The four corners, the ox, the lion, the man, and the eagle. If each one represents a part of that, would they not also represent and add up to another number as you added up the other numbers to get to 144,000?
Right.
You know what I'm talking about there? You did that on one. If you could do that with the others, that might mean something also.
I'd have to talk to a numerologist about that.
Okay.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it, to add it all in there, because it all has, a place and a meaning, and it's there's a reason why in the Bible it says not to look into any of this stuff. So.
Right.
Well, yeah, because they want but who said that? It's somebody put that in there so somebody doesn't, look farther ahead. They want the masses to just read the words. Mm-hmm. Is that not correct? Mm-hmm. You don't want to be, Micah, they don't want people to be like you who understand it and understand the code. The code is for the higher people up the ladder, whereas, the normal everyday folk that they want to go to work and plow the fields just need to read and hear the words to make a story out of it so they can mishmash it together. Is that not correct? Or
it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense though when you see it this way, though, doesn't it?
Yes. Or here's the other part I want to ask you. Or did the people back in the day understand all this? I'm going to show you in part 2. Been brainwashed not to understand it, just to read the words.
I'm going to show you in part 2 Sumerian works, Babylonian, Egyptian works. I'm going to show you all that.
Yeah, because the Babylonians and the Egyptians didn't have no Jesus, didn't have no Bible. They didn't have this was all before that happened. And so how would they calculate things? Or was this all? But then again, the Bible and the Egyptian stuff and the Sumerian text, they all are built on the same foundation, are they not?
Yeah, it's the same story.
Yeah,
it's the same
see
story.
that in all the stories. It's the same story. Yeah.
Same story, different characters.
Yeah,
different timeline.
Different time.
Yes. Different time, but the same timeline, because You're never getting out of the timeline. The days of the month stay the same. The zodiac stays the same. The seasons always stay the same. It's all about time. None of it's about the story of the people or this or that. It's always about the consistency of what you're talking about. It's just like if you were going to talk to an alien out there, how would you speak to him? He wouldn't understand your language, nor would he understand my language. You would have to focus on something that you both could connect with. Like I said once before, I had a show, and I says, how would you tell somebody 1,000 years from now what you were talking about or what you want to convey to them? How would you do that? You wouldn't be telling them in the words that we're talking today, because all the meanings would have changed. You would have to talk to them in seasons, code words, something that never changes, by the stars. And so the people from back then are sending us a message, are they not?
Yeah.
It's just
I guess astrology is universal language. You know what I mean? It's probably sort of the beginning of language and communication. And then it's, evolved into what we got today. Like English is fairly new as far as I know, and a very dumbed down language. But yeah, I'm seeing the timer. We're almost going up to an hour and a half, and I don't want to make the shows too long because I know people have.
Yeah, I hear you. I actually have to run.
You got to go. Everybody's got to go. So everybody,
will you please let me know how this is received?
Yes, I will. So we'll probably be airing this on Sunday, and then so stay tuned, everybody, for the second part of this, which might tie more stuff in. And so if you guys have any questions for him so far, put them in the comment section down below, and we can bring those up to in the next show. Okay. And yeah, stay tuned. Join us in the live chat. There'll be a live chat on Sunday at 6 o'clock Pacific time zone. And I can't wait. Yeah?
Send me the link. Send me the link. I'm going to try and make that.
I will send you a link on all that kind of stuff for sure. Yeah, hopefully you'll be on the live chat, and then you can answer questions right there as well. So that's always nice. But yeah, stay tuned for the next episode, everybody. It's probably going to tie more in everything. I'm sure we kind of just stopped it right sort of in the middle here. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, both of you. It's great to have you guys here, and I can't wait to do it again next week. So stay tuned. Yeah. Any other last minute things you want to put in there for everybody, or you got to go? Oh, I guess he froze up. All right, he's gone. He's got to go. All right, everybody, make sure you hit that like, okay? Subscribe, share it out. Go and check out all the links for everybody, okay? And join us on all the different platforms. And stay tuned for next episode. Any last minutes from you there, Robert?
Nope, I can't wait for the next episode. I hope y'all got something really good out of this, because I sure did, and I got a ton of notes. So
there is a lot of information here but it's one of those shows that you got to pay attention. You can't just be sitting there, yeah, you have to pay. It's one of those shows you got to watch a couple of times probably in order to get it. So thank you, everybody, so much for watching. And like I said, hit the subscribe and set the calendar for next week. You don't want to miss the second episode of this. So thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.